Tuesday, March 17th, 1953, 10:45 a.m., West 135th Street and Lenox Avenue, Harlem, New York. Temperature 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Clarence Eugene Johnson, age 23, waited outside Miller's barbershop for his 11 a.m. appointment. Junior accountant at Carver Federal Savings Bank since January 1951. Monthly salary, $185. No criminal record, no prior arrests. First cousin to Ellsworth Raymond Johnson, known as Bumpy Johnson. Clarence wore a charcoal wool suit from Blumstein's department store, brown Oxford shoes, fedora. Standard business attire for a black professional in 1953 Harlem. He lived in a rented room at 4147 West 143rd Street. Rent $12 per week. He took the bus to work. He didn't own a car. His connection to Bumpy Johnson consisted of family dinners at their grandmother's apartment on Edgecombe Avenue twice monthly. Nothing more. A 1951 Plymouth Cranbrook stopped at the curb. Forest green. Mud on the rear fender. No police markings. Two white men in plain clothes. Detective Frank Sullivan exited the driver's side. Age 38. Height 6 Nojero. Weight 210 pounds. 16 years with NYPD. 8 years assigned to the 28th precinct covering Central Harlem. Sullivan supplemented his $4,200 annual salary by collecting protection payments from numbers runners on West 145th Street. Common knowledge in the precinct. Never investigated. Detective William Patterson exited passenger side. Age 42. Height 5'9", weight 230 pounds, 20 years NYPD service, interrogation specialist. The 28th precinct holding cells were built in 1924 with reinforced walls. Sound didn't travel. Patterson knew this, used it regularly. Sullivan approached Clarence. Clarence Johnson? Yes, officer, can I help you? Need you to come down to the precinct. Answer some questions. Questions about what? I haven't done anything. Routine inquiry. Won't take long. You can come voluntarily, or we can arrest you for loitering. Your choice. Clarence looked at his Bulova watch. Gift from his grandmother, 21st birthday, 10:48 a.m. Can I call someone? You can make a call from the precinct. Patterson opened the rear door. No interior handle. Standard modification for transport vehicles. Clarence got in. 3 witnesses watched from inside Miller's barbershop. Their names were never recorded. Their statements were never taken. The drive to the 28th precinct at 2271 Frederick Douglass Boulevard took 11 minutes. Sullivan followed all traffic laws, stopped at red lights, used turn signals, normal driving. They entered through the front entrance at 10:59 a.m. The desk sergeant logged no arrest, no booking. They took Clarence directly to the 3rd floor. Interview room 7. The room measured 8 feet by 10 feet. 1 metal table, 3 chairs, 1 window with frosted glass. The radiator was set to maximum. Room temperature approximately 80 degrees. Standard interrogation technique. Make the subject uncomfortable. Create stress through environmental factors. Detective James Morrison waited inside. Age 35. Height 5'11". Weight 165 pounds. 2 years at the 28th precinct. Previously assigned to the 20th precinct in Manhattan. Transferred after an incident involving a merchant's daughter. Internal Affairs closed the case without charges. Morrison carried a Polaroid land camera model 95. Retail price $89.75. Morrison paid $39.75. Purchased with cash skimmed from the evidence locker. The camera was new technology. Released by Polaroid Corporation in 1948. 60-second development time. No darkroom required. No film processing. Instant documentation. Sullivan pointed to the chair facing away from the door. Sit. Clarence sat. Patterson closed the door. The lock engaged. It could only be opened from outside. Morrison opened a folder containing 3 sheets of paper. Clarence Eugene Johnson, born April 2nd, 1930. Current employment, Carver Federal Savings Bank. No arrests, no convictions. Morrison looked up. Says here you're related to Ellsworth Johnson. He's my cousin. That's not illegal. No one said it was illegal. We're investigating financial irregularities at Carver Federal. Your cousin runs numbers operations from 110th to 105th Street. You work at a bank that handles deposits. You see the problem? I work in savings accounts. Small deposits only. I don't have access to large transactions. I don't handle anything related to my cousin's business. Sullivan moved behind Clarence. Standard positioning. Creates psychological pressure. The subject must turn their head to maintain visual contact. Your cousin deposits approximately $15,000 weekly through various accounts. We think you facilitate those deposits. That's not true. You can check my work records. You can check the bank's transaction logs. I don't have any unexplained income. I live in a rented room. I take the bus. I don't... Sullivan struck Clarence on the back of his head. Open palm, significant force. Clarence's fedora fell to the floor. His head snapped forward. His forehead stopped 2 inches from the table edge. Don't interrupt Detective Sullivan. Patterson's voice remained level. Professional tone. Morrison picked up the fedora. Dobbs 5th Avenue. This hat retails for $15. That's 8% of your monthly salary. Expensive purchase for a junior accountant. It was a Christmas gift from my grandmother. Patterson stood. Stand up. Clarence stood. Patterson struck him in the solar plexus. Precise technique. Knuckles angled upward beneath the ribcage. Professional blow, designed to cause maximum pain with minimal visible damage. Clarence doubled over. His breathing stopped temporarily. Patterson had struck the nerve cluster that controls the diaphragm. Sullivan grabbed Clarence's shoulders, held him upright. Morrison raised the Polaroid camera. The flash fired. Harsh white light filled the room. Morrison advanced the film. The photograph emerged from the bottom of the camera. White square, approximately 325 by 425 inches. Morrison waved it in the air. The chemicals activated. The image appeared gradually. 60 seconds total development time. Good angle. Let's get another. Morrison repositioned himself to Clarence's left. Patterson struck Clarence again. Same target. Same technique. Clarence's knees buckled. Sullivan maintained his grip. Blood appeared at the corner of Clarence's mouth. He had bitten his tongue. Morrison took a second photograph. The camera whirred. The print emerged. Morrison checked the image quality. Perfect. Got the blood. Got his face. Got everything. The beating continued for 18 minutes. Sullivan and Patterson alternated. They targeted the stomach, ribs, kidneys, and thighs. Nothing above the shoulders, except the initial strike. Nothing that would be visible when Clarence wore a suit jacket. Professional technique learned from prison guards and military interrogators. Morrison took 4 photographs total. Each film pack contained 8 exposures. Cost per pack, $1.75. Morrison considered the photographs an investment. They served 2 purposes. First, personal trophy collection. Second, insurance. If anyone questioned the arrest reports, Morrison could produce photographic evidence of resisting arrest and combative behavior during interrogation. The photographs showed Sullivan holding Clarence while Patterson struck him. This detail would be ignored. The photographs existed, therefore they constituted evidence. At 12:17 p.m., they stopped. Clarence lay on the floor, conscious but barely responsive. His charcoal suit was torn at the shoulder. His white shirt had blood on the collar from his mouth. His Oxford shoes were scuffed. Sullivan stood over him, breathing normally. Here's what happens next. We process you for loitering, resisting arrest, and assaulting a police officer. You spend tonight in holding. Tomorrow you see the judge. He gives you time served. You go home. But you remember this. You remember we can pick you up anytime. You remember your cousin's name doesn't protect you. Understood? Clarence nodded. Speaking was impossible. His diaphragm was still partially paralyzed from the repeated strikes. Morrison gathered 3 photographs. He placed them in his jacket pocket. The 4th photograph he left on the table facing Clarence. Souvenir. They processed Clarence at 1:35 p.m. Standard booking procedure, fingerprints, mugshot. The booking photograph showed minimal facial damage. Swelling around the left eye, split lip. The desk sergeant's report noted, resisting arrest, minor injuries sustained during apprehension. No mention of interview room 7, no mention of the 18-minute beating between 11:59 a.m. and 12:17 p.m. Clarence was released at 2:45 p.m. No charges filed. The desk sergeant returned his personal property. Wallet containing $23, Bulova watch, leather belt, 1 Polaroid photograph measuring 3.25 by 4.25 inches showing Clarence being held upright by Sullivan, while Patterson's fist was drawn back mid-strike. Have a good day, Mr. Johnson. The desk sergeant's tone was neutral. Standard dismissal given to approximately 200 black men, processed through the 28th Precinct monthly. Clarence walked home. West 143rd Street between Amsterdam and Hamilton. Distance 0.8 miles. Walking time 43 minutes. Each step caused pain in his ribs. Each breath hurt. He kept the photograph in his jacket pocket. He couldn't discard it. He couldn't look at it. At 3:51 p.m., Clarence knocked on his grandmother's door. 409, Edgecombe Avenue, apartment 3B. Henrietta Johnson, age 71, opened the door. She looked at Clarence's face. She stepped aside. No questions. Bumpy Johnson sat at the kitchen table, reading the Amsterdam News Afternoon edition. He looked up. His facial expression didn't change. He set down the newspaper. Grandmother, would you give us the room, please? Henrietta took her knitting. She went into the bedroom. She closed the door. Clarence sat carefully. Each movement caused fresh pain. He placed the Polaroid photograph on the table. Bumpy looked at the photograph for 30 seconds. He didn't pick it up. He didn't touch it. He examined every detail. Sullivan's face, Patterson's fist, Morrison's shadow visible at the frame edge holding the camera, Clarence's expression showing pain and shock. Names: Detective Frank Sullivan, Detective William Patterson, Detective James Morrison, 28th Precinct, 3rd floor, interview room 7. Time: they picked me up at 10:48 a.m., released me at 2:45 p.m. The beating was maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Morrison took 4 pictures. He kept 3. That one he gave me. Bumpy picked up the photograph. He held it by the edges. He examined it under the kitchen light. Polaroid land camera model 95. Costs approximately $90 retail. Film packs cost $1.75 for 8 exposures. This isn't NYPD equipment. Morrison bought this himself, which means he's been using it regularly, which means there are other photographs, which means this isn't the first time. Bumpy, I don't want you to do anything that... Go to Harlem Hospital, see Dr. Wright, get examined, get x-rays, get documentation, then come back here and rest. I don't want trouble, I just want to forget this happened. This isn't about what you want. 3 police officers beat my cousin because they thought his last name meant nothing. They were wrong. Bumpy walked to the wall telephone. He dialed a number, 5 rings. Marcus, meet me at 135th and Lennox, 30 minutes. Bring Raymond and Thomas. Bring the Ford. He hung up. Clarence went to Harlem Hospital. Dr. Louis T. Wright examined him. Wright was chairman of the hospital's board of directors. He had treated the Johnson family for 20 years. He documented 3 cracked ribs, severe contusions across the abdomen and lower back, lacerated tongue requiring 2 stitches, soft tissue damage requiring 6 weeks recovery time. Wright created 2 copies of his report, one for Clarence's medical file, one in a sealed envelope that he handed to Clarence directly. Give this to your cousin. Tell him I documented everything. Tell him if he needs anything else, I'm available. By 5:37 p.m., Bumpy had complete information. Marcus Webb had made phone calls. Marcus had talked to informants. Marcus had pulled records. Detective Frank Sullivan lived at 847 72nd Street, Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. 2-story house purchased in 1948 for $18,500. Sullivan's documented salary was $4,200 annually. The down payment on the house was $5,000. No records explained the additional $3,800. Sullivan was married, 3 children ages 14, 11, and 7. He drove a 1950 Chevrolet Deluxe, dark blue, New York license plate NY4762. Sullivan's shift ended at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. He stopped at Finnegan's Bar, 2847 West 139th Street, for exactly 2 drinks. He left at 6:45 p.m. He drove home to Brooklyn. This pattern repeated every Tuesday for the past 3 years. Detective William Patterson lived at 340 West 108th Street, apartment 4F, studio apartment, monthly rent $85. Patterson was divorced, no children. His shift ended at 6 p.m. He typically stayed until 7 p.m. completing paperwork. He took the subway home, a train, downtown. He had no regular schedule beyond work, no predictable patterns. Detective James Morrison lived at 515 West 183rd Street, Washington Heights. He lived with his mother, Helen Morrison, age 71. She had suffered a stroke in August 1951. She required full-time care. Morrison's shift ended at 6 p.m. He drove directly home every night except Thursdays. On Thursdays he played poker at the Washington Heights Social Club, 4247 Fort Washington Avenue. Stakes game, $20 buy-in. Morrison usually lost. Marcus Webb assembled the team at Small's Paradise, 2294 7th Avenue. Raymond Lewis, age 34, former Army mechanic, 82nd Airborne Division, European Theater, discharged 1946, expert in vehicle entry and building access. Thomas Bishop, age 29, former Golden Gloves boxer, middleweight division, 47 wins, 3 losses. Currently worked as enforcer for Bumpy's numbers operations in East Harlem. Bumpy met them in the back office. We have a 7-hour window. Clarence was released at 2:45 p.m. I want this completed by 9:45 p.m. I want the message delivered clearly. I want every officer in the 28th precinct to understand what happened and why it happened. Marcus had a notebook. The photographs. Morrison has 3 in his possession. We need all 4 together. Correct. All 4 photographs. All 3 detectives. Morrison's camera. Everything in one location. The scene needs to be self-explanatory. Location? Not the precinct. Too many variables. We need somewhere isolated that we control, but where discovery is guaranteed within 24 hours. The construction site at 145th and Amsterdam. Foundation poured last month. Building hasn't started. Chain link fence but easy access. Dead end street. Minimal traffic after dark. Discovered at first light by construction crews. That works. Sullivan first. He's predictable. Patterson second. Morrison third. We need them alive until we have all 4 photographs. Then we finish it. Raymond Lewis positioned himself outside Finnegan's Bar at 6:05 p.m. He wore consolidated Edison coveralls. He carried a standard utility toolbox containing rope, duct tape, chloroform, and a blackjack. A stolen Con Edison panel truck was parked at the curb. In New York City, a man in utility coveralls was invisible. Detective Sullivan exited Finnegan's at 6:43 p.m. 2 minutes early. He walked to his Chevrolet, keys in hand. Raymond approached from behind. "Excuse me, sir. We got a gas leak reported on this block. You smell anything unusual? Sullivan turned. No, I don't. Raymond's blackjack struck Sullivan behind the right ear. Precise impact. Sullivan collapsed. Raymond caught him, looked around. Two pedestrians visible 1 block south, both walking away. Raymond lifted Sullivan in a fireman's carry, walked to the Con Edison truck, placed him in the back, covered him with canvas marked asbestos, authorized personnel only, closed the doors. Total elapsed time, 4 minutes. Raymond drove to the construction site at 145th and Amsterdam. He backed the truck to the fence gate. He waited. Detective Patterson left the 28th precinct at 7:11 p.m., 14 minutes late. Paperwork had taken longer than expected. He walked to the subway entrance at West 135th and St. Nicholas. He descended to the platform. Thomas Bishop stood 20 feet away, reading the Daily News Evening Edition. He wore a business suit, carried a briefcase. Standard commuter appearance. The downtown A train arrived at 7:19 p.m. Thomas boarded the same car as Patterson, stood near the doors, tracked Patterson's position. At West 4th Street, Patterson exited. Thomas followed at 20-foot distance. Patterson walked north on 6th Avenue toward his apartment. At West 108th Street, Thomas closed the distance, timing calculated for minimum witnesses. Detective Patterson? Patterson turned. Recognition registered. He had seen Thomas before. Probably in Harlem. His hand moved toward his service revolver. Thomas was faster. Right fist to the solar plexus. Same target Patterson had used on Clarence. Patterson doubled over. Thomas's left uppercut caught Patterson under the jaw. Patterson's knees buckled. Thomas caught him, supported his weight. Officer had too much to drink. Getting him home. Thomas spoke loudly. 2 witnesses across the street. Both kept walking. Standard New York response. Not my problem. Thomas guided Patterson to a 1948 DeSoto, parked at the curb, opened the back door, placed Patterson inside, secured his hands with zip ties, applied duct tape to his mouth. 7:28 p.m. Thomas drove to the construction site. Raymond was waiting. Sullivan remained unconscious in the Con Edison truck. Patterson was conscious, but restrained in the DeSoto. Detective Morrison left the 28th precinct at 6:54 p.m. Later than usual, he had been writing reports about a robbery on West 147th Street. Morrison believed thorough documentation compensated for limited investigative ability. He drove his 1949 Nash Rambler north on Frederick Douglass Boulevard. Right turn on West 159th, heading to Washington Heights. Marcus Webb followed in a 1951 Ford Custom, dark green, stolen that afternoon from a parking garage at 42nd and 10th Avenue. Marcus maintained 3-car distance, professional surveillance technique. At West 163rd and Broadway, Morrison stopped at a red light. Marcus pulled alongside, rolled down his window. "Excuse me, your left rear tire looks low." Morrison rolled down his window. "What?" "Your tire, left rear, looks like it's losing air." Morrison opened his door, walked to the rear of his Nash, examined the tire. It was properly inflated, 32 psi, no visible damage. Marcus was already out of the Ford. He moved quickly, the .38 revolver pressed against Morrison's lower back. "Hands on the car, don't speak, don't move. Your mother is at 515 West 108 3rd Street, apartment 2A. She's alone. She's helpless. You understand?" Morrison froze. Marcus removed Morrison's service revolver, patted him down, found 3 Polaroid photographs in Morrison's jacket pocket. Marcus examined them. All 3 showed Clarence being beaten, different angles. Morrison had documented his work thoroughly. "Walk to my car. Driver's side. Get in. Slide to passenger seat." Morrison complied. Marcus kept the gun visible. Constant pressure. Constant reminder. 8:02 p.m. Marcus drove to the construction site. Thomas and Raymond had positioned Sullivan and Patterson in the center of the foundation pit. Both conscious now, both restrained with zip ties, both gagged with duct tape. A portable work light powered by a gas generator illuminated the area. Standard construction equipment. Nothing unusual. Marcus brought Morrison down into the pit, positioned him next to Sullivan and Patterson. All 3 detectives, all together. All conscious, all understanding what was about to happen. Bumpy Johnson arrived at 8:14 p.m. His driver parked the 1952 Cadillac Series 62 at the street level. Bumpy descended into the pit. He moved slowly, used his cane. At age 57, Bumpy had survived multiple shootings, 2 prison terms, and countless close calls. He moved with deliberate care. Bumpy stood before the 3 detectives. He didn't speak immediately. He looked at each of them. Sullivan first, then Patterson, then Morrison. "My cousin is 23 years old. He works at a bank. He has no criminal record. He has no involvement in my operations. He is family, that's all." Bumpy's voice was quiet. The detectives had to strain to hear, despite being 10 feet away. Marcus handed Bumpy the 3 Polaroid photographs from Morrison's pocket. Bumpy examined each one, held them to the work light, studied the details. "Detective Morrison, where's your camera?" Morrison's eyes tracked to his Nash Rambler, parked at street level. Marcus walked to the vehicle, searched it, found the Polaroid land camera model 95 in the glove compartment, 1 film pack inside, 6 exposures remaining. Marcus brought the camera and film to Bumpy. Bumpy loaded the film. He had watched Morrison operate the camera. Simple mechanism, point, press button, wait 60 seconds. Gentlemen, this is not revenge. Revenge is emotional. This is correction. You made an error in judgment. You believed my cousin's last name meant nothing. You believed you could beat him, photograph him, and face no consequences. You were incorrect. Bumpy raised the camera, looked through the viewfinder, adjusted focus. This photograph. Bumpy held up one of Morrison's pictures showing Clarence's beaten face. Will be found with your bodies. When the investigation begins, when the crime scene is processed, when the evidence is catalogued, everyone will understand exactly why this happened. Everyone will understand there are consequences for certain actions. Bumpy handed the camera to Marcus. Document this, individual shots first, then group shot. Make sure the photograph is visible in every frame. Marcus worked methodically. He photographed each detective separately. He placed the Polaroid of Clarence on each detective's chest, clearly visible. Then he arranged all 3 detectives in a line, placed the photograph in the center, took a final group photograph. 4 exposures total. Marcus waved each print in the air, waited for development, checked image quality. Perfect documentation. Marcus handed the developed photographs to Bumpy. Bumpy examined them, nodded approval, placed all 4 new photographs plus the original 3 from Morrison into a manila envelope. Raymond and Thomas had performed this type of work before, not frequently. Bumpy preferred negotiation and reputation to violence. But when violence became necessary, it was executed with precision. 3 shots, 3 suppressed .22 caliber pistols, 3 executions spaced 1 minute apart. Small caliber rounds ensured minimal blood spatter and minimal noise. Sullivan first at 8:39 p.m., Patterson second at 8:40 p.m., Morrison third at 8:41 p.m. Each detective had approximately 20 seconds to watch and understand. This was not random violence. This was calculated response to documented action. Marcus arranged the scene with careful attention to detail. All 4 Polaroid photographs from Morrison's original collection were placed in Morrison's jacket pocket, the pocket containing his detective's shield. The Polaroid camera was positioned next to Morrison's right hand, lens cap removed, as if it had fallen when Morrison collapsed. The message was explicit. The documentation was complete. The evidence told the story without requiring interpretation. Bumpy climbed out of the foundation pit, walked to his Cadillac, sat in the back seat. Take me home. Then called the 28th precinct from a payphone. Anonymous tip. 3 bodies. Construction site. 145th and Amsterdam. Don't provide details, just location. The anonymous call came in at 9:04 p.m. 2 patrol officers from the 28th precinct arrived at 9:19 p.m. They found 3 bodies. They found 4 Polaroid photographs. They found 1 camera. They found everything arranged with the precision of an evidence presentation. The officers called for detectives at 9:23 p.m. The detectives called for the medical examiner at 9:31 p.m. The medical examiner called for additional support at 9:45 p.m. because processing 3 dead police officers required resources beyond standard homicide procedures. By 10:12 p.m., the construction site was illuminated by portable generators. The entire 28th Precinct Detective Squad was present. The police commissioner arrived at 10:38 p.m. The mayor's representative arrived at 10:56 p.m. The investigation began immediately. Every witness located, every piece of evidence documented, every photograph examined. The Polaroid showing Clarence Johnson being beaten was impossible to miss. The photographs showing the 3 detectives with that same Polaroid were equally obvious. The message required no explanation. The official report, completed March 23, 1953, concluded that Detectives Sullivan, Patterson, and Morrison had been killed during an investigation related to organized crime. The report noted that evidence recovered at the scene suggested a possible connection to ongoing numbers operations in Harlem. The report made no specific mention of Clarence Johnson. The report made no mention of Interview Room 7. The report made no mention of the photographs, despite those photographs being catalogued as evidence items 1953-0317A through 1953-0317D. The unofficial report circulated through the NYPD within 72 hours, passed cop to cop, precinct to precinct. The story was simple. 3 detectives beat Bumpy Johnson's cousin, took photographs. 7 hours later, all 3 were found dead with those photographs. The timeline was precise, the message was clear, the lesson was permanent. Clarence Johnson returned to work at Carver Federal Savings Bank on Monday, March 23, 1953. His ribs were wrapped with medical tape. His face showed residual bruising. His colleagues asked no questions. In Harlem, certain events were better left undiscussed. The 28th Precinct continued normal operations. Different detectives, different faces, but the behavior changed. Not dramatically, not permanently, but measurably. When suspects named Johnson were brought in for questioning, the interrogations remained professional, the hands remained at sides, the cameras remained in storage. The change wasn't universal. The NYPD in 1953 was systemically brutal toward black suspects. 3 dead detectives didn't reform the entire institution, but they created a specific boundary. Bumpy Johnson's family was off limits. This boundary was respected, not out of morality, out of documented consequence. In 1967, retired NYPD Sergeant Michael Donovan published a memoir titled 20 Years in Harlem. One chapter described the events of March 17, 1953. Donovan wrote, 3 detectives forgot that in Harlem, certain families carried weight. They documented their own mistake. That documentation became the evidence used against them. The photographs that proved their crime became the photographs that proved their punishment. 7 hours from arrest to execution. That's not revenge. That's consequences operating at maximum efficiency. The Polaroid land camera model 95, catalogued as evidence item 1953-0317E, remained in NYPD storage until 1978. It was destroyed during a routine purge of unsolved case evidence. The photographs were destroyed simultaneously per department policy regarding graphic evidence past statute of limitations. Copies survived in private collections, in academic archives, in police training materials labeled Officer Safety, Lessons from Historical Cases. The image of 3 dead detectives with the photograph of their victim became a specific type of cautionary tale. Not about the morality of violence, about the mathematics of consequence. Bumpy Johnson died July 7, 1968. Natural causes. Heart attack at Wells Restaurant, 2247 7th Avenue. He was eating dinner with Frank Lucas. He collapsed over his plate. He was 62 years old. His funeral was attended by approximately 500 people, including multiple NYPD officers who had learned, either directly or through transmitted institutional knowledge, that some families required different treatment. Clarence Johnson worked at Carver Federal Savings Bank for 36 years. He was promoted to senior accountant in 1959, branch manager in 1968. He retired in 1987 with full pension. He never spoke publicly about March 17, 1953. When his grandchildren asked about his cousin Bumpy, Clarence said, "He was family. He protected family. That's what family does." The Polaroid photograph that started everything, the one showing Clarence being held by Sullivan while Patterson prepared to strike, was never recovered. Clarence kept it until his death in 2003. It was found in a safety deposit box at Carver Federal Savings Bank, along with Dr. Wright's medical report documenting 3 cracked ribs, severe contusions, and lacerated tongue. Clarence's will specified that both documents be donated to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. They are now part of the permanent collection. Archive reference number SCRBC 1953 Johnson 001, March 17, 1953, 10:48 a.m. Clarence Johnson detained, 12:17 p.m. Beating completed, 2:45 p.m. Released with photograph, 8:41 p.m. 3 detectives dead, 7 hours from crime to consequence, 7 hours from documentation to retribution, 7 hours from question to answer. That's not revenge. That's Bumpy Johnson demonstrating that in Harlem, in his territory, family was not negotiable. The badge meant nothing. The uniform meant nothing. The institution meant nothing. Blood meant everything. The photographs proved it. The bodies confirmed it. The timeline documented it. Proven. Final. Absolute.